guys, I'm going to be perfectly honest and blunt with you. Sonic the Hedgehog is not a terrible video game adaptation. It's not the greatest, but it's not terrible. And trust me, there are terrible video game adaptations. The Resident Evil franchise, that Assassin's Creed adaptation. So, yeah. But, I mean, if I were to pick a general audience of who should go watch this, I would say every Sonic fan, as well as every kid. I mean, it's a kid's film through and through. Now, with that being said, here is my review for Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog is very successful in half of the things that it does, and it does a lot of things very well. But then the other half, it's terrible. First things first, the best aspect of it, Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik. Okay? His quirkiness, his persona, his personality, his charm, everything that is Jim Carrey is in this film. It sometimes does come off as tedious and repetitious, yes, but Jim Carrey, the quirky Jim Carrey, is back. And he was a very suited, very well-acted part to this film. He was perfect, honestly. He brought his charm. He definitely brought his personality. And I loved that they actually gave his villain, Dr. Robotnik, a backstory. Now, with that being said, as far as the backstory, I really wanted them to keep edging in. I wanted them to keep expanding the lore of his backstory and everything. But what they did was they just kind of crept in every now and again, gave you a hint of it, and then that was about it. It was supposed to always imply the bad things he was doing. Then he would shed some light on his backstory, his background, and that's why he did some of this stuff. And that's fine. Like I said, I mean, he is probably the best written part of this film. He has a backstory. He's a fantastic main villain. He has flaws. His villain and character has flaws. Like, I mean, filming-wise, the character has flaws. Now, as the character, his character also has flaws, with that being his background, being bullied, being the smart nerd and whatnot, uprising and overcoming all of the odds and becoming a genius, but he also becomes an asshole pretty much. Essentially, he gets bullied into thinking that he's the greatest, most intelligent being ever existed. Sonic is a good protagonist. I liked Sonic. I think that he was a very strong part to this film. The other main character, James Marsden's character, and his girlfriend, they weren't terrible characters, and I mean, they acted fine, not perfect, not charismatic like Jim Carrey, but they were fine. I have complaints on how average their characters were, and I mean, James Marsden's character, he had some backstory to him, being the goody two-shoe, decent above all for his city and town. That's great and all, but I mean, that alongside the main story, it's all been there, done that, and done it 10 times better in the past. Okay, that's where this story fails. Half of it is great. Half of it being the main villain, half of the jokes, which the jokes span from 50% adult jokes and 50% kid jokes. And honestly, the 50% adult jokes, they're the ones that land. Main villain, success. Half of the jokes being adult jokes, success. Sonic's part, success. The main story, fail. Okay, let's get into that. Main story, like I said, been there, done that. It's an adventure of the ages, you know, going from point A to point B because they need to recover point C. And honestly, we practically just went through this story in Doolittle. Now, with that being said, Sonic the Hedgehog is definitely a better film, hands down, in every aspect than Doolittle. Doolittle sucked. Sonic, though, its story is essentially the same exact thing. It's an adventure, and they have to grab something, and a bad guy is there along the way, and blah, blah, blah. Now, I really appreciated they blended all of the high-tech gadgets of Dr. Robotnik's character into it, because some of the parts with his robots, they were also genuinely funny, and they were actually pretty cool sequences, some of them. I think the cinematography was at its best when Sonic was rolling everywhere, especially towards the end. He was doing his, his Sonic thing, rolling through obstacles and everything, and the cinematography was actually pretty good, especially in those parts. The pacing was fine, okay? I don't have a problem with the tone of it or the pacing. I do have a problem with the writing. The intro was awful, okay? They set Sonic up in not even 5 minutes. They talked about him and showed him as a little hedgehog, and his surrogate mother was a crow or owl. I believe it was an owl. But anyway, it was basically just like introducing his mom and introducing Sonic, and that would have been fine if they fleshed it out longer. They literally did a thing in the intro. They wanted you to feel bad for Sonic, and they wanted you to feel bad for the mom, and it just... There wasn't anything to it, though. There was nothing before. Like, it's called a rising action for a reason. Okay, you need to flesh out your characters. Then something traumatic happens. And then you feel bad for them. You gain empathy and sympathy towards them. Not introduce them and, oh my god, this happens. That's a fail. Throughout the rest of the movie, I mean, it was well paced. There was not a single slog of a second. It was entertaining. The film itself is a very entertaining film. If I were to rate every aspect of it, I'd say the story would be 3 out of 10, just because it's the same crap as they've been doing for years and years. Go here, get this, come back, blah, blah, blah. Main villain attacking them. Characters, I would say probably a 7, because I liked Sonic, and Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik, hands down the best character, but the points fall because of the other characters. They're likable, but that's it. That's the problem. There's not that much depth to them. They're just likable, but that's it. His girlfriend's sister is another shining star for characters. She was really just in the film for laughs. And what I can say about that is hands down a success. Okay, basically every line that she spat was perfect, and it was laugh out loud funny. And a lot of it was adult humor. Cinematography, I would have to say probably a 7 out of 10, because most of the film takes place in a small town, as well as short time being in a city. But the action sequences, and especially the race around parts, that's where the cinematography shines, definitely. But it's held back by all of the average standard fare of filming. The visuals are fine. I'm not going to say they're perfect, but honestly, I didn't have any complaints for the visuals. It's not Avatar level or anything like that, but I mean, there weren't really any blemishes that I saw visually. The writing, as I said, to me, awful. It wasn't the worst ever, but it definitely could have spent more time in the writing room. It's not that it was terrible writing, it's that the writing didn't really flesh anything out other than Dr. Robotnik's character, and even his character they definitely could have fleshed out. I wanted them to flesh out his character a lot more than anything else. And what I got, I appreciate what I did get, but I wanted more of who he was. I think they should have fleshed out a lot more of the other characters. I like the attempt with Sonic and his background and everything, but again, it didn't really do that much for the story or the film itself. Sonic, he also is very charming. I think there are some moments he's funny, but nowhere near as much as Dr. Robotnik. I really enjoyed the donut jokes and basically all of the jokes at other people's expense. Those are funny because they're harmless. Okay, they're not insulting people. They're just jokes pointing out things that they do and did. And the way that they interpreted them into jokes were actually funny. Now, there are technically 2 credit scenes at the end, and okay, the first one is more meaningful than the other. It's basically an epilogue, and I like epilogues. It worked well with the end of the film. The post-credit sequence, I mean, it shows you the future, but as for right now, I mean, it's whatever. Just like the Marvel films, they show post-credit sequences, and they're awe-inspiring, but at the same time, in that current moment, it's just like, whatever. So, anyway, my final rating for Sonic the Hedgehog, I'm going to say this before my score, is a very entertaining film, okay? If you go in, shut your brain off, you watch it, you will be fully entertained. Not enthralled, but entertained. But then you get into the specifics of it, and there are a lot of flaws, and it does need a lot of work. So my score for Sonic the Hedgehog would be a 5 out of 10. It's an average film. It's entertaining, and it does evoke a lot of laughs. Sometimes laugh out loud laughs. But essentially, its faults really dampen it, and it really puts a damper to the score. Now, I mean, anybody can go and watch it, and they can have a good time. But honestly, this is just mainly for fans and kids. So, Sonic the Hedgehog, a 5 out of 10. Thank you.